The morning the world ended was strangely bright. People would later call it the White Dawn, though no one who survived it liked to describe it at all. In the hills outside Denver, 12-year-old Eli Carter remembered only one thing: his father's hand tightening around his shoulder as the sky flashed like a second sun. They had been driving along the interstate, an ordinary winter morning, the heater humming weakly against the cold. The sky was a clear blue, and for a moment, Eli thought someone had turned on a spotlight above the clouds. Then, the radio screamed, an emergency bulletin cutting through the music, and his father swerved the car to a stop. "Stay down," his father whispered, pushing Eli's head below the window. "Don't look." But curiosity won. Eli lifted his eyes at the exact moment the horizon swelled into a dome of white fire. It was silent at first. That was the strangest thing. A swelling brightness, sharp as a blade, glowed across the mountains, bleaching the world to a ghostly pale. Then came the wind, hot, crushing, a wall of force that rolled down from the explosion and slammed into the stalled line of cars. Windows burst, metal twisted. The sky dimmed from white to red, then to a strange bruised purple. Eli didn't scream. He couldn't. He felt as though the world around him had lost the ability to make sound. His father dragged him into a drainage ditch beside the highway. The heat washed over them and the air filled with falling ash, soft, weightless flakes that looked like snow but carried the smell of burned earth. "Dad!" Eli's voice cracked. "What was that?" His father didn't answer. He stared toward the horizon where the city had been, his face hollow, unreadable. The flash had come from the direction of Denver. A second explosion bloomed far to the south, followed by another. The air shook. A distant rumble rolled across the plains like thunder. And then, the silence returned. A silence so complete that Eli felt it pressing against his ears. The emergency radio in the car spat static. Words broke through, fragmented reports, urgent tones, then a final message before the signal vanished. Multiple strikes, communications failing, nuclear detonations confirmed. Seek shelter. Seek shelter. The world collapsed into static. The voice never returned. Eli and his father stayed in the ditch until the sky dimmed. The ash fell thicker, drifting like pale feathers, coating their hair and clothes. The air grew strangely cold. "Dad," Eli whispered, "is it over?" His father looked at him with the expression of someone who has no truth left to give. "No," he said softly. "This is only the beginning." They approached the car, but something strange was happening. The sunlight, what little broke through the swirling ash, seemed weaker, dimmer, as though the morning itself was fading. A chill crept across the asphalt. Eli shivered. "Why is it getting cold?" "Nuclear winter," his father murmured. "It's starting faster than I thought." They scavenged what they could: bottled water, a flashlight, a blanket, then walked toward the mountains, away from the burning city. Behind them, a dark cloud was rising, spiraling upward into the atmosphere. It stretched across the sky like an enormous black tree. Eli watched it grow, its branches spreading, blotting out the sun. "Where are we going?" he asked. "A place I heard about," his father said. "A survival shelter. Old Cold War project, never used. If it still exists, it might be the only safe place left." Eli nodded, though he barely understood. All he knew was that the world behind them had vanished. The ash kept falling, soft and silent, covering their footprints almost as fast as they made them. By afternoon, the sky had dimmed to a twilight gray, and the cold grew sharper, biting at their faces. Eli glanced once more at the distant ruins behind them. The glow of fires flickered faintly, swallowed by the rising storm of ash. In that moment, he realized something with a clarity far beyond his years. The world wasn't just ending, it was freezing, and they were racing against the cold. The trail into the mountains had once been a hiking route, but the ashfall erased every familiar marker. What used to be patches of evergreen forest were now veiled in gray. Branches sagged under the unnatural weight. The air tasted metallic, and each breath felt like inhaling winter. Eli kept close to his father, who walked with steady determination, though his shoulders slumped more noticeably with each hour. The wind had changed direction, carrying flecks of ash like swirling snow. It clung to their clothes, their eyelashes, and even melted on Eli's tongue when he accidentally breathed with his mouth open. "How far is this place?" Eli asked. "A few more miles," his father answered, though he said it in a tone that betrayed uncertainty. "It's built into the stone, near an abandoned research station. If the entrance hasn't collapsed, we might be able to get inside." Do, do you think anyone else will be there?" "If they knew about it," his father said after a pause. "But I don't know how many people ever did." They walked in silence for some time. The world felt muffled. Even the crunch of their boots was soft, like walking on chalk. Eli found himself glancing back often, expecting something, someone, to follow. But the only movement was the swirling ash. The first real sign of trouble came when Eli stumbled. At first he thought he'd just tripped on a rock hidden beneath the gray layer. But when he stood, a wave of dizziness washed over him. "Dad!" His father turned quickly. "You're breathing too much dust. Wrap the scarf tighter." Eli obeyed. The dizziness faded, but a persistent cold gnawed at his fingers. He buried them deeper into his pockets. The mountains rose higher ahead, jagged silhouettes cutting into the dim sky. Snow, real snow, untouched by ash, glimmered faintly on the slopes. Somewhere up there, the shelter waited. They reached an old service road as evening approached. The sky was a dull, unbroken gray. The sun had become just a faint disk behind the clouds. The temperature dropped noticeably. Even Eli's father pulled his jacket tighter. "There," he said, pointing to a rock formation shaped like a broken tooth. "The entrance should be just beyond that." They climbed carefully. Loose stones shifted under the ash, and Eli almost slipped more than once. When they rounded the formation, his father stopped suddenly. The bunker door was half buried, a slab of steel, massive, rectangular, rusted at the edges, leaned at an angle, crushed under fallen rock. A dark gap beneath it led into blackness. "Is it broken?" Eli asked. "Not completely." His father knelt, brushing away ash. "If we can squeeze through, we'll be safe from the fallout for now." "You first," Eli said, trying not to sound terrified. His father gave a thin smile. Together. They lowered themselves to the ground, sliding into the narrow space. The air inside felt stale and cold. Their flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing a tunnel reinforced with concrete and steel beams. The entrance corridor was intact. "Looks like it survived," his father said, relief softening his voice for the first time since the explosion. "Come on." They moved deeper. The tunnel widened into a circular chamber. Dust coated everything: metal benches, wiring panels, an old emergency map pinned to the wall. It looked abandoned for decades. Eli brushed the dust from a faded sign. "Project Hearth, Civilian Emergency Habitat." His father traced the letters with his finger. "I can't believe it. It's real." A cold gust of wind rushed down the corridor behind them, causing Eli to flinch. The sound echoed strangely, like a distant whisper. "We should close the entrance," his father said. "Even partially. It'll cut the cold." They dragged a fallen metal panel across the opening. It didn't seal completely, but it blocked most of the wind. The temperature stabilized almost instantly. Inside the bunker, the silence felt different, heavier, but less threatening. Eli explored cautiously. Down a side passage, he found a supply room. Most shelves were empty, but he did discover a few dust-covered crates. Inside were vacuum-sealed ration bars, brittle but edible. He hurried back. "Dad! Food!" His father opened one, sniffing it. "Still good. These things could survive the end of the world." Eli stared at him. His father hesitated. "Bad joke. Sorry." They ate quietly. The rations tasted chalky, but eased the ache in Eli's stomach. "We'll stay the night here," his father said. "Tomorrow we'll explore deeper. There might be generators, maybe even communication equipment. We need to find out what's happening outside." Eli nodded, but unease prickled at him. Deep underground, surrounded by cold metal and silence, he felt like the world above was drifting farther and farther away. As he wrapped himself in the blanket, he whispered, "Dad, do you think anyone else made it?" His father didn't answer right away. He looked toward the tunnel leading outside, where a faint draft carried the scent of ash. "I hope so," he said quietly, "for all our sakes." But the way he said it made Eli wonder if hope itself was starting to freeze. By morning, if one could call the dim gray light morning, the temperature inside the bunker had dropped even further. Eli woke shivering, the thin blanket offering little warmth. His father was already up, rummaging through a metal cabinet filled with old tools and notebooks. "Couldn't sleep?" Eli asked, rubbing his eyes. "Not much." His father's voice was hushed. "The cold's getting worse, faster than I expected. That means the clouds are thickening, blocking the sun more than just ash alone would." Eli didn't fully understand, but he knew it was bad. They ate another ration bar and ventured deeper into the bunker. The flashlight beam revealed narrow hallways, branching into research rooms, storage closets, and old offices where papers lay scattered, yellowed with age. Dust coated everything like a second skin. "What was this place for?" Eli asked. "A Cold War project," his father replied, brushing ash off a faded desk. "Meant to study survival conditions after a nuclear attack. They wanted to model scenarios: airflow, temperature shifts, radiation spread." He paused. "Looks like they never finished." Eli examined a map pinned to the wall. It showed the entire mountain range with the shelter marked in red. Several smaller dots surrounded it, labeled monitoring stations. "Could we reach those?" he asked. "Maybe, but not yet. It's too cold out there. And we need to check one more thing first." His father led him to a steel door marked Communications Center. The door groaned as they pushed it open. Inside, rows of dusty equipment lined the walls: radio consoles, monitors, signal amplifiers. A thick layer of frost coated the floor. "Do you think it works?" Eli whispered. His father ran his hand across the main console. "Power first." They searched the bunker until they found a small generator room. The machinery looked ancient, but intact. After some tinkering and several frustrated mutters, the generator coughed, sputtered, and finally roared to life. A low hum vibrated through the bunker. Eli grinned. "We did it!" His father gave him a small, proud nod. "Let's see if we can reach anyone." They returned to the communications center. Lights flickered along the console. The screen blinked on, glowing blue-gray in the dim room. His father adjusted dials, tapped keys, and leaned close to the receiver. "Emergency frequencies first," he said. "If anyone's transmitting..." Static filled the room, loud, broken, endless. Eli winced. His father cycled through frequencies, each one sounding as empty as the last. Minutes passed, then half an hour. The static began to feel like the sound of the world decaying in real time. "What if no one's out there?" Eli asked. His father didn't look up. "Someone has to be." But his voice trembled. Eli wandered to the far corner, where a battered notebook lay under a fallen chair. He opened it carefully. Inside were scribbled calculations, scientific notes, and a page titled Projected Thermal Decline. After multi-city strike underneath were numbers, temperatures dropping rapidly over days, not weeks, faster than models predicted. Eli shivered. Just then, the static changed. A tiny crackle, a flicker of rhythm. His father froze, hand hovering above the dial. Then, a voice. Weak, distorted, but unmistakably human. "Repeat. If anyone surviving, report. Northern sector compromised. Temperatures falling. Fires extinguished globally." The signal wavered. His father leaned closer. "This is Denver Mountain Sector. Do you read? Do you read? We have shelter and limited supplies. Over." Silence. Then the voice returned, this time clearer, though urgent and strained. "Global ash cloud confirmed. Temperature dropping across all regions. Radiation spikes near major cities. Civil authority collapsed. If you can hear this, seek shelter immediately. Nuclear winter will intensify. Weeks turning to days. Expect extreme cold." The message looped, repeating automatically. "It's a recorded broadcast," his father whispered. "No operator." "Does that mean they're gone?" Eli asked, his throat tightening. His father didn't answer. Instead, he scanned more frequencies. Most were silent. A few crackled faintly but offered nothing intelligible. Then, on the far end of the spectrum, a soft sound emerged. Music. A piano playing a slow, old melody. Eli and his father exchanged a glance. "Someone's out there," Eli said. His father's eyes were wide, a mix of confusion and hope. A live signal wouldn't waste bandwidth on music. But what if the music shifted, warped, faded into static? Then a voice whispered through the noise, "Shelter, Southeast Ridge, survivors." The message cut abruptly. Eli's heart pounded. "We have to go. Someone needs help." His father hesitated. The cold was worse outside. But the voice, it had sounded so close, so desperate. "We can't stay here forever," his father said finally. "If there are other survivors nearby, we need to find them." He shut off the console and grabbed his pack. "Bundle up," he said. "We're going to the ridge." Eli nodded, fear and determination coiling together in his chest. The world outside was freezing, but somewhere in that frozen silence, a voice had called out, and they would answer it. The moment Eli and his father pushed aside the metal panel covering the bunker entrance, the cold hit them like a physical strike. It wasn't the natural mountain cold they knew from winters past. It was sharper, emptier, as if the warmth had been drained from the air itself. Their breath came out in thick white clouds, ash and snow mixed together, drifting in slow, eerie spirals. Eli tightened the blanket around his shoulders. His father adjusted the straps of his pack, checking the flashlight and tools one last time. "Southeast Ridge," he murmured. The signal had to come from somewhere near there. They began the climb. Each step sent puffs of ash swirling around their boots. Visibility was limited. Even the trees looked more like silhouettes coated in frost. The landscape no longer resembled Colorado. It felt like stepping into another planet. Silent, gray, and hollow. "Do you think it was a trap?" Eli asked softly. His father shook his head. "No one has anything to gain by tricking survivors. It was a real distress call. Someone needed help. Or still needs it. That's what we're going to find out." The ridge loomed ahead, a jagged rise of stone, partially hidden by a blanket of snow. As they climbed higher, the wind picked up. It carried a low whistle, almost like distant voices. Eli paused more than once, listening. "Dad, do you hear that?" "Just the wind," his father answered, though his tone lacked conviction. They reached the crest of the ridge after what felt like hours. The cold had grown unbearable. Eli's fingertips throbbed, despite being tucked into his sleeves. His father scanned the landscape below with squinted eyes. "Look there," he said. At the base of the ridge, half buried by snow, was a structure, small, rectangular, and metal. A monitoring station, like the map had shown. Smoke puffed weakly from a vent on the roof, barely visible against the gray sky. "Someone's inside," Eli exclaimed. His father nodded. Or was, recently. "Let's go." The descent was slippery. Twice Eli nearly fell, but his father caught him each time. As they approached the station, Eli noticed footprints, several sets, faint but clear in the snow. His heart quickened. They reached the door. A dim orange light flickered through the cracks. His father knocked. No response. He knocked again, harder. "Hello? We heard your signal. Are you all right?" A moment passed, then, softly, a voice from inside. "Who's there?" Eli stepped closer. "We're survivors. We came from the bunker." Another pause. Locks clattered. The door opened a few inches, warm breath escaping through the gap. A pale face appeared, an older woman with frost-bitten cheeks and trembling hands. "Come in," she whispered, quickly. Inside, the station was cramped but warm, heated by a salvaged propane burner. Blankets and coats lay scattered across the floor. Beside the heater sat two children, a girl around 10 and a boy no older than 6, huddled together. Their faces were gaunt, eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. The woman shut the door behind them. "I didn't think anyone would hear the broadcast. The generator barely has power for the radio." "We heard enough," Eli's father said. "What happened here?" The woman, who introduced herself as Marlene, explained in a trembling voice. They had been traveling when the blasts hit. Their car crashed in the chaos. They found the monitoring station by luck, one of the few structures still intact. The radio had been functioning intermittently. She'd tried to reach others, but only static answered. "We've been running low on food," she said, "and the temperature, it keeps dropping. I think it's going to get colder than this." Eli glanced at the children. They watched him with quiet desperation. He remembered the warmth of home, the sound of his mother's laugh, then the blinding light that swallowed all of it. His father set down his pack. "We can bring you back to our shelter. It's not perfect, but it's larger than this place." Marlene's eyes filled with relief, but also hesitation. "There's something else you should know." She pointed toward the far wall. A portable radio lay there, still on. Static crackled softly, accompanied by faint clicking sounds. "An hour before you arrived," she whispered, "we got another transmission." Eli's father frowned. "From who?" I don't know." The voice was distorted, not like before. It kept repeating the same phrase over and over. She swallowed, her hands shaking. "What phrase?" Eli asked. Marlene took a breath. "The cold is spreading." The room fell silent. And then, she continued, "it said something else, something that terrified me." Eli leaned forward, heart pounding. "What?" She lowered her voice to a whisper. "It's not the winter you should fear. It's what comes with it." The wind howled outside, pressing against the thin walls of the station. The children huddled closer together. Eli felt the air grow colder, as though the words themselves had carried ice. His father exchanged a tense glance with Marlene. "We're leaving," he said firmly. "All of us. Now." "But the storm, if that message is true," he whispered, "we don't have time to wait." Eli grabbed the little boy's hand. The door rattled as the wind outside rose to a shrill wail. Whatever had spoken through that radio, it wasn't finished, and outside the cold was rising. The moment they stepped outside the monitoring station, Eli felt the cold in a way he hadn't before. It was no longer simply freezing, it was heavy, like the air itself had thickened into something that resisted movement. Snow and ash swirled sideways in sharp lines, carried by a wind that had grown strangely rhythmic, almost pulsing. Eli held tightly to the little boy's hand, while his father guided Marlene and the girl down the ridge. They stayed close, leaning into the storm. The world beyond their flashlights had become a shifting wall of gray. "Stay together," Eli's father shouted over the wind. "Don't stop moving." Every few steps, the snow seemed to change direction, blowing upward or sideways against natural logic. Eli kept remembering Marlene's words. "It's not the winter you should fear. It's what comes with it." What did she mean, he wondered. What could be worse than this? The storm howled louder, answering with a sound that felt almost alive. They reached the lower slope of the ridge, where the wind eased slightly. The little boy stumbled, and Eli lifted him up. Marlene was breathing hard, more exhausted than she admitted. Eli's father scanned the emptiness. "We're halfway to the bunker," he said. "We can rest behind that outcrop." They huddled in the shelter of a rocky overhang. The storm's edge hammered against the stones like waves against a cliff. The girl shivered violently, so Eli wrapped the blanket around her shoulders. Marlene watched the storm with wide, fearful eyes. "It wasn't just a transmission," she whispered. "There was something in the silence between the words, like someone breathing." Eli's father frowned. "The equipment was damaged. Distortion can sound like—" "No," Marlene said firmly. "I know what I heard." Before he could answer, the wind suddenly dropped. Not slowly, instantly. The world fell into a deep, unnatural stillness. Even the falling ash hung suspended in the air, drifting as if frozen mid-movement. Eli grabbed his father's arm. "Dad, what's happening?" His father didn't reply. He was staring at the ridge they had just descended. A figure stood atop it, barely visible through the haze. Tall, motionless, surrounded by swirling ash that didn't touch it. Eli blinked, heart pounding. "Is that someone else?" No one could survive up there without shelter, Marlene whispered. The figure lifted an arm, not waving, pointing, down the slope, toward them. Eli's father stiffened. Move, he said sharply. Now! They scrambled from the outcrop, pushing through the thickened air. The wind rose again, but this time it carried a low, resonant hum. Eli felt it in his chest more than his ears. The children cried. Marlene kept glancing behind them, her face pale. Eli risked one look back. The figure was gone, but the hum wasn't. It grew louder, deep, vibrating, like the growl of distant thunder beneath the world. The snow rose from the ground in spirals, torn upward in twisted columns. The temperature dropped so fast that Eli felt his eyelashes stiffen. Hurry, his father called. The bunker is close. They reached the final stretch, a narrow path along the rock face. Beyond it was darkness, a void where the mountain plunged downward into unseen depths. Eli clung to the wall as the storm pressed in. Then, another sound. Footsteps, crunching slowly through the snow behind them. Human? Animal? Something else? Eli didn't know. He didn't want to know. The bunker entrance appeared ahead, half buried in snow and ash. His father rushed forward, pulling aside the metal panel they had used as a makeshift door. In! All of you! Marlene helped the children through first. Eli followed, breath shaking. The footsteps behind them grew louder, closer, echoing off the stone. His father grabbed Eli's arm and dragged him inside. Together they heaved the metal panel shut. The moment it clanged into place, the hum outside stopped. Silence fell like a dropped curtain. For a long moment, no one spoke. Only their ragged breathing filled the corridor. Finally, Eli whispered, Dad, what was that? His father didn't answer right away. He stared at the sealed entrance, jaw tight, eyes full of a fear Eli had never seen before. It doesn't matter, he said softly. We're safe here. For now. They retreated into the bunker's main chamber. Eli turned on the generator again. Lights flickered to life, pushing back the darkness. The children